Okay, kids. So today we're talking about fiscal policy, crowding in, crowding out, loanable funds, the Laffer curve, and all the MPS, MPC, KS, and KT things that we need. So just to refresh your brain, we're going to start on the back because I don't think we need to deep dive quite yet into an FRQ, but let's start on the back. So a table that looks something like this. And then we'll work our way to the front with multiple choice questions. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have disposable income, we have consumption, and it goes straight into the spending and tax multipliers. Okay, first, to know KS and KT, first, what are the formulas of KS?
Negative.
Nope.
MPC.
Nope.
1 over K.
1 over MPS. Oh, we're looking good. 1 over MPS is a spending multiplier. The tax multiplier, though, is what formula?
Negative MPC over MPS.
That's negative MPC over MPS. Are you staying?
No, I just need to make up hours.
Okie dokie. Splendid. Okay. And negative MPC over MPS is the tax multiplier, spending multiplier is 1 over MPS. And then we have all of these incomes and consumer consumptions that are like equivalent. So remember, change in consumption over change of income is the equation for MPC. And remember, if you know MPC, you can easily solve for MPS because MPC plus MPS is equal to 1. So if one is 0.75, the other one's got to be 0.25. If one of them is 0.9, the other one's got to be 0.1. And so here we have a whole bunch of different consumptions. It doesn't matter which one you do. Let's just do the first one here. The change of consumption, 540 to 555. What's the difference? 15. That goes in the numerator. The change of incomes for that same jump is going to be 30. 30 over 15 over 30 is? Half 0.5, and that's MPC that we just solved for, which makes MPS also 0.5 because added together equals 1. So for the spending multiplier, it's going to be 1 over MPS, which we just solved for, which is 0.5. What is 1 over 0.5? 2. The spending multiplier here is 2. Do we need to do that same whole math for the tax multiplier? No, because KS plus KT equals 1, and if KS is 2, KT has got to be negative 1, because added together equals 1. So KT, the tax multiplier, has got to be negative 1 here. All right, I'm going to see if you guys can do the next 2 bullet points, and then we'll check our math. Let's keep in mind the calculators will not be provided for you on the AP test day. That's Friday. If you do not have a simple 4-functioning calculator, you need to head to the dollar store, Target, Walgreens, whatever, between now and then.
Can we just borrow one here?
No, you may not, because there's 70-something people taking the test. I'm down to like 25 calculators because 5 of them I'm missing, and so no. Plus, I just don't want to. No, because like if it dies in the middle of the test, I would feel horrible.
Isn't yours like solar powered?
Yeah, but like just if it just like crumbled and fell apart and all the buttons went everywhere, if it imploded, I would feel horrible. And so I don't want that responsibility. All right, do the next 2 bullet points, and then once you got an answer for those 2, share your answers with a friend. Notice how MPC is different here. We're not using the information from the front. We're using different MPCs.
Hi Olivia, how you doing? Good luck on your test. I heard it's soon.
Okay, do we have an answer for the second bullet point? The first one. Okay, we just did this. KT is, what did I say? Negative 1. KS is 2. Grab that. Okay, do we have an answer for MPC is 0.6? What's MPS? 0.4, and the spending multiplier, which you need because it's talking about government spending, the spending multiplier is going to be KS is equal to 1 over 0.4 in this example. 1 over 0.4 is 2.5, 2.5. And so that's the spending multiplier, which will be multiplied by spending to get the change of GDP. The change of spending is 9. 9 is the change of spending. The multiplier is 2.5. The change in GDP, if I can do it, is 22.5? Yeah. $22.5 billion is the change in GDP. Do we have an answer to the next one? Yes or no? No? Okay, I'll give you about 10 more seconds to answer the next question. Notice that it's a tax change, so we're going to be using the tax multiplier on the next bullet point. Galvin, sunscreen.
I'm just like 16 hours on the sun.
You could reapply sunscreen. Just looking out for your skin, buddy. Okay. So MPC is 0.8, which makes MPS 0.2. And we're talking about taxes here. It says income taxes increase. So the change of taxes means it's a tax multiplier formula, which is negative MPC over MPS, negative 0.8 over 0.2. Negative 0.8 over 0.2 is negative 4. So any change in taxes is going to be multiplied by negative 4. The taxes went up by 10. So it's going to be positive 10 times negative 4. The tax multiplier is always negative, which means GDP will go down by $40. There's no units. Nice. I think that's an okay amount. $40. GDP is going to go down by $40. All right. I'm going to let you finish the rest of that page, and then I want you guys to check your answers because I'm going to be working through it, but I'll give you a head start.
What is economies multiplier refer to?
The what?
The economies multiplier.
Oh, because it's positive, it's got to be the spending multiplier just based off context clues. The tax multiplier is always negative. So on this next bullet point, the economies multiplier has got to be spending multiplier. Tiago, which one did you mess up on?
No, I messed up on the third to last one. But I see it.
Okay. But you multiplied 100 by 5, didn't you?
No, I misread it and I said it. I thought it was asking what the new NPC was.
Oh, okay. Okay. You've got another minute to, and then we'll go over any questions that you guys have. Raul, what are you having trouble?
Third to last.
Did I mess up? Okay. The MPS is 0.2. If the real GDP increases by 100 billion, okay, so the change in GDP is 100 billion. This situation was a result of an increase of aggregate expenditure schedule. Ugh. Okay, aggregate expenditures just means spending. So it's like, what was the change in spending to create the $100 billion change in GDP? So it's spending times the spending multiplier. That's the change in GDP. 1 over MPS, which is 1 over 0.2, which is 5. So spending times 5 gave us 100. Spending must have been 20.
Yeah, I multiplied to the.
Okay. Yeah. It's always good to plug in, like writing the equation out and like plugging in what you're solving for, so you don't forget what you're solving for.
Yeah, so what I would say is, I'll retake that. Wow, I mean, I was done. I was done. Who would have blocked, okay?
Andy, how you doing? Which one are you looking at? Second to last? Stop. Why? Why are you difficult? Okay, I guess I'll erase 1 over 0.2. Okay. The economy is enclosed private economy where MPC is 0.8, so that it means MPS is 0.2. What change in investment? Investment is a type of spending. So we're solving for the spending to change real reduce domestic output by 80 billion. So I guess yeah. Okay, so GDP fell by 80 billion, so the change of GDP is negative 80. We're talking about investment spending, so we got to be using the spending multiplier. The spending multiplier is 1 over MPS, in this case 1 over 0.2, since MPC is 0.8. So some amount of spending times 5, because that's the spending multiplier, is going to give us 80. And so negative 80, I guess, because GDP is going down. And so a 16 times that 5 is going to give us that 80 billion in change. All right, I want to talk about a couple things that we have to remember when it comes to MPCs and MPSs. KS is always greater than KT. The spending multiplier always yields a bigger impact on GDP than a change in taxes by the same amount. Meaning, if taxes and spending both go up by the same amount, they do not cancel each other out. That is a very common multiple choice and FRQ question. So if spending, I'm actually going to write that down. If spending goes up and taxes goes up by the same amount, GDP is going to go up because the spending multiplier KS is greater than KT. Because the spending multiplier has a bigger impact, they don't cancel each other out completely. The spending is going to increase GDP more than higher taxes decreases GDP. So GDP overall is going to go up. Anything else on this page before we practice some multiple choice questions? Okay, let's go to the very front of the multiple choice, so we're not totally working backwards. The front of multiple choice looks something like this. It starts off with an aggregate supply and demand graph. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions on this page. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to work on that, and then we're going to share our answers and then work each problem out. Okay, about 5 minutes for that page. I paused so there wouldn't be so much dead space, and then I forgot to unpause it. And anyway, here are the answers: 14, 50, and 11. If you missed the other two, I guess you should have been here. All right, I'll give you 5 minutes to work on these 5 questions. I'm going to pause again, and if I remember to unpause it, then I remember. If not, oh well.
On 19.
Not government spending. So autonomous means like free on your own type of spending. I like if you see the word autonomous, just skip over it. Like it doesn't change the meaning of the question at all. Oh.
You know, 5 to 8 still, yes.
Okay.
I was just-
Let's do. Okay, I'm pausing. Yeah, I did. All right, let's do 38 and 19. 38 is just a definition question, no really application. It says which of the following is true about the MPC about the marginal propensity to consume. So MPC is like the equation is change of consumption over change of spending. It is not the same as the money multiplier. Money multiplier is 1 over RRR. That's completely different. It is not equal for people of low incomes. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. E is no, stupid. It is not C. As incomes increase, people do not spend more of their income. They actually spend a smaller percentage of their income because now they have the ability to save. So while rich people spend more money, yes, it is a smaller percent of their whole income. The correct answer here is B. If you know the MPC, you can calculate the MPS, and therefore you can calculate the spending multiplier. You know what A is describing? A is the definition. Oh, hello. Of average propensity to consume, which is just consumption over income, not change of consumption over change of income. Letter A is talking about APC and therefore APS, which barely tested on the AP test. Like I can't even find any questions that refer to calculating APC and APS. Like that's the only answer choice. Like that answer choice is like the only reference you usually see on about that. Number 19, you might not know this, but you've seen this question before. Consumption is 400. The margin rent to consume is 0.8. Disposable income increases by 1,200. Consumption spending will increase by. There's a number here that is totally irrelevant. Can anyone tell me what that number is? 400. Not relevant at all. Because well, we have MPC being 0.8. And we have a change of income of $1,200. And it's asking how much will spending change by? What that is the equation for MPC, which is right here. We're solving for a change of consumption because it's saying how much is spending going to change by? Consumption. Oops, I misspelled it. Over change of income that was given to us, 1,200. So we're solving for the numerator. We're solving for X, and that's going to be 960. 960 is 80% of $1,200. That is the correct answer there. All right, 23, super easy. Hopefully you're not getting this wrong. It is B. All the other ones are not even referencing a graph that's real. I'm scrolling down so we can see 29. All right, which of the following will lead to an increase in GDP? All right, well, we're looking for things that calculate GDP. What's the correct answer here? D, D's and dog. If foreign companies build new assembly plants in the United States, that would be an increase in investment spending. But A, prepare their own tax documents. That's a non-market activity. Working abroad, that's maybe GNP. That calculates as gross national product because they're in other countries, but they're still our citizens. Government prohibits the sale of alcoholic beverages, would probably lower GDP. And sell their used cars. Use anything doesn't count. Doesn't count towards GDP. And so that's not going to increase or decrease. It just doesn't count. And 24, last but not least, which of the following is expected to cause an increase in GDP in the short run? We just talked about this 5 seconds ago. We said that anytime taxes and government spending change by the same amount, GDP is still going to change. They're not going to cancel each other out, which is why D is the correct answer here. Annie, you okay there? You're kind of zoning out. All right, flip over. Let's finish those last questions up. Those 3 multiple choice questions, 27, 36, and 42. I'll give you a few minutes. All right, if you got an answer for these 3 questions, or once you do, share your answers with a friend. If you got some answers. All right, can anyone tell me the other way to describe stagflation? Cost push inflation. Stagflation, also known as cost push inflation, is a decrease in aggregate supplies, which is D. I'm going to draw it really quick because why the heck not? So you can't start off from cost push inflation. We're going to start off from equilibrium. Boop, 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 boop. And a decrease of aggregate supply. Both raises the price level. SRAS2. Prices go up. That's the inflation we're talking about, and GDP goes down. And that is stagflation, also known as cost push inflation, and there it is right there. There's the inflation. On 36, this is a pretty simple page. An increase in personal income taxes will most likely cause aggregate demand and aggregate supply to change in which of the following ways in the short run. Don't overthink this. Just because it shifts one doesn't mean it shifts the other. An increase of personal income taxes, this right here, this is going to affect consumer spending, consumption. Consumption is going to go down if you tax people more, which decreases aggregate demand, but does not change aggregate supply at all, because personal income taxes is not a shifter of aggregate supply. If it was business taxes, then it would shift supply. But it's personal income taxes, which affects consumer spending, which is a shifter of aggregate demand, not aggregate supply. And last but not least, when firms restructure their operations to decrease production costs, which is decreasing production costs, means lower input prices. The aggregate supply curve, price level, and real output would change in which the following ways. You just draw it. And then you read your graph. We got price level, Y. We're going to start off from equilibrium. And if input prices are going down, you can produce more. So aggregate supply is going to shift to the right, and that will lower the price level and raise GDP because of that, right? Which is aggregate supply is cheaper to produce, so you can produce more. So that is going to be D as in dog. Aggregate supply shifts to the right, prices fall, and GDP goes up.
So on a graph, is cost push in a recession the same?
If you start, that's why you can't start off from cost push inflation, because removing that original supply curve, it looks like a recession. And since they are not the same thing, you can start off in a recession and you can start off from demand pull inflation, but starting off from cost push inflation looks like a recession, and so that's why we don't start off from it. Good question. All right, turn to the very front.
It's kind of unrelated, but in FRQs, how many do you think they'll take a full point to do, like accidentally forget for like S or AS or?
If you do not label it, so every graph that you draw has 2 points associated with it.
Yeah.
The labeling it, that's 1 point,
Yeah.
and the shifting it correctly with arrows and new equilibriums is the other point. So like if you mislabel one thing, that's -1 of 2 possible points.
How many points do you need to
So there are 60 multiple choice questions. One long FRQ. The long FRQ in the past has always been the same type of format. There's either you're starting off in full employment, recession, or inflation on a Phillips curve or aggregate supply and demand. They do some type of policy, typically fiscal or monetary policy, with either another graph. Usually, if it's fiscal, they'll talk about loanable funds and crowding in and out. If it's monetary, they'll bring a money multiplier, money market graph, maybe a reserve market graph. And then something happens maybe with interest rates because of that, and then it's like, how does it affect currency? And so like it kind of ties in everything. So that's the first FRQ, and then the 2 small FRQs, they're usually about one topic, not about a whole bunch of topics. So typically for a short FRQ, that's where you would have your comparative and absolute advantage question, or a currency by itself question, or a market basket with like, I sold 10 apples and 5 bananas, and this is the price, and this is the new price. Calculate for real, calculate for nominal. What was the CPI? Blah, blah, blah. So, like, that might be one. So, if we're looking at 34 out of 60, 5 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 3. But, like, what do you want me to put up here? What percentage? Annie, you asked this question.
what's the weight from the multiple choice?
So multiple choice is 66.6666 repeating. The rest of the short answer is 33.333. Half of that 33.333 is just the first FRQ, and the other half of the 33.333 is between these two. Yeah. So the multiple choice is weighted heavier. Like, okay, let's say you get a perfect score. Of course, if getting a perfect score, you're not going to flub the rest of it. But you do have to, obviously, oh my God. Well, apparently you don't have to do any writing at all. Don't need a graph. Graphing is for suckers. But, okay. Yeah. Just do that. Or you know what, better yet, do this so you get some sort of plaque. You get a perfect score, I'm pretty sure I think they give you a plaque. Or some sort of certificate. I think we've only had in 20 years or something, we've had one student get a perfect score on the macro test, and it was memorial. So imagine my disappointment that y'all are imperfect people. All right, that's fine. I wouldn't have got a perfect score anyway. I did a full AP test just for funsies, just sitting down in the time. I misread two questions. One of them I thought said interest rates, it said inflation, and the other one it was like something long run, and I didn't catch the fact that it said long run. I was like, okay, so let's work on this right here. It goes to F, A, B, C, D, E, F. This would be considered a long FRQ.
The next one goes to G.
Oh, that might be an even longer FRQ. You know what? This might be a short FRQ. How many graphs are here? Usually it's like 2 graphs on a long one and 1 graph on a short one. Okay, let's work on this one again and give you some time. Make sure you start reading from the very top of the page. Don't just start reading at letter A. You have no idea the scenario that it's in if you just start at A.
Is that targeted?
No, that's everybody.
Because it's literally, I was literally reading on A and then I read what it was.
Yes. You need help with what? The first part, the reading? Okay, so the deficit is probably there to give you information later on. Aggregate supply and demand cannot show whether they're in deficit or not. But you do know that they're below full employment. They're in a recession.
God, look at me go.
Calvin?
You would draw like the
It's like
chart, like accurate and full employment, and then draw another line.
No.
Or you just start.
You're starting off in the scenario. It doesn't say currently, does it? It's operating below full employment.
Okay.
So
Okay, so your graph should look like this on letter A. Olivia? Okay, good. Okay, this does not apply to this FRQ, but this applies to almost every other FRQ I've seen. It'll sometimes say, like, on label the current equilibrium PL1 and Y1 respectively, label the full employment equilibrium YF. It's telling you 2 Ys. It's telling you current equilibrium Y and Y1 or whatever, and long run equilibrium YF. So it's got to be in a gap. I can't tell you how many times I've read an FRQ where it's like, it tells you to label 2 different Ys. And people are like, I'm going to say it's fully employed. I'm like, no. Make sure if it tells you it's labeled 2 things like this, that means there is a gap. Okay, Tiago.
Will they take word off instead of SRAS, you put just AS?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But you have to put LRA.
Yes. And please, for the love of God, do not put SRAD. I have seen that a lot. There's no short run aggregate demand. SRAD. No, SRAD is not rad. Okay, on B. Suppose that the country's government increases spending. On your graph in part A, show the short run effect of the increase of deficit spending have on each of the following: aggregate demand, output, and price level. Okay, how's it going to shift? What's going to shift? 80 to the right. How far to the right should you shift?
Until it's full.
I would. It does not say show the long run effects of this or anything like that, but I would. Maybe make it a nice pretty picture. They're not going to count off if you shift it a little bit or a lot of it, but why not make it perfect? Your equilibriums better be labeled. You better have arrows between those equilibriums, and you better have arrows showing direction change on your shift. So an arrow from 80 to 82, a price level arrow, and a GDP arrow. So I go. Okay. Have we gotten to C yet? Working on it. having candy or ice cream or whatever you're saying.
No, I'm a hostess at a sushi restaurant. And he's like, hey, come for 10%, 15% off.
Probably won't, but okay. Hey, what'd you do when your loanable funds crashed?
Shifted supply left.
Shifted supply left. Did anybody do something different? Because remember, you can actually shift crowding out on the loanable funds graph one of two ways. Demand to the right. So you could have said more demand for loans because the government has to take out loans, which means they demand more loans. Or you could think about it like there's less supply available for us. Either way, you are totally fine. Oh no, Miss Taylor, it is the day of the AP test, which is Friday, by the way. Just in case you were not paying attention. Oh no, I forget how to label loanable funds. Then read the question again. Every time there's an FRQ, it tells you at least one of the axes in the question. It says blah 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 blah. Show the effect on the real interest rate. That's the y-axis. So if you forget how to label a graph, please read the question again because chances are the axes are going to be in the question. All right, D. Given your answer in part C. The answer in part C was real interest rates went up. That was our answer in part C. What happens to the international value of the currency? How's it going to be affected? Okay. Is the currency going to appreciate or depreciate with higher interest rates? Which one is it? Oh, appreciate. Because you can't take out loans from a different country. They don't know who you are. So what do interest rates have to do with it? You can save your money in a different country. And where do you want to save your money? Where interest rates are? Because you earn a higher return on your financial investments. And so the currency value is going to appreciate, I'll do B down here, appreciate since investors seek a higher return on foreign financial investments. Here's a wrong answer. Appreciate because interest rates are higher. You already said interest rates are higher on C. You can't get credit for two different answers that you answered the exact same way.
You get 1 point for
Nope.
knowing it's
It's all one. It's all one. So if anytime they say explain, it's a 1 point thing. And you have to say appreciate and the correct explanation. You can't just say interest rates are high. You can say interest rates are high so people want to save their money there. That's fine. You can restate the fact that interest rates are high. But saying interest rates are high alone is not an explanation. All right. Given your answer in part D. Okay, our answer in part D was it appreciated. That was the answer of part D. It's appreciated. So our net exports and imports. What happens to exports and imports if our currency appreciates? What happens to exports?
goes up.
Which one is
I
it?
mean down. And then
Down.
let's-
Down and imports go?
Let's go up.
Because it says explain. If our currency is appreciated, that means our currency is too.
Because more-
No, we already said that. It already says appreciated.
It's too expensive.
It's too expensive. The currency appreciated, which makes now that currency too expensive, and people don't want to buy our expensive stuff. And so because, I don't know, what is this country? It doesn't say America. Okay. Because currency expensive relatively. What happens to the trade balance? Trade balance is another way to say XN. So if our exports went down, our imports go up, net exports goes, it goes down. It's a deficit. So they go down. XN is trade balance or balance of trade.
What's the difference between real interest rate and nominal interest rate?
One's adjusted for inflation, one's not. Money market has nominal interest rates. Loanable funds has real interest rates, and they adjust it with that Fisher equation. Remember, the nominal interest rate is based, or the real interest rate is based off of nominal minus inflation is real. So if you account for inflation, real is what's left over. All right, on F, given the results, a vulnerable funds market. Okay, here we go. We're back to here. Explain how the government deficit spending. influence long-run economic growth. Oh, please, God, please. Okay. What happened to interest rates?
It went up.
Okay, so then how was that tying to long-run economic growth? What graph do you need to think of when I say long-run economic growth? Thank you. And if interest rates are higher, what happens to long-run economic growth?
Down.
It's down, it decreases, it goes down because
You can't invest in capital.
capital goods. You can't take out a loan to buy capital goods because interest rates are higher. And so I'm going to just write on here, for F, long-run growth, P.S. If it ever says what happens to long-run growth and you mention the letters G, D, and P together, it's wrong. Because long-run economic growth is not based off of spending and it's based off production. You need to be talking about the PVF curve. So long-run economic growth goes down because there's less capital goods because loan's expensive.
I began my statement with the crowding out effect leading to more expensive loans, which
That's fine.
does that work?
That's fine. You're kind of just restating this graph.
Yeah.
But make sure that you're like answering the question that they ask of like long-run economic growth. But you can't just say because crowding out.
Yeah.
That is not enough. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Crowding out, explain. It's like, okay, higher interest rates, loans are expensive. Economic growth is based off of resources. We can't get the resources because loans are expensive. All right. Let's finish up today with one last FRQ. This one's got some math in it, and it's got the money market graph in it. Ooh, and the Fisher equation. Oh, how exciting. What a great way to end today. All right. Anybody need this? Can I erase? All right. I'm going to get you started. Do letter A and B. Do letter A and B on the second FRQ. And then we'll see what we got. Once again, start reading at the top of the page. Don't start reading at A. Start reading at the top of the page. You can't show deficits and aggregates finding it. That would be a change in GDP. You don't have to. It doesn't say that you have to.
But it's not wrong to put 500, right?
If you put something there, oh God. If you put something there in your graph that they're not asking for, and it turns out to be wrong, as long as it doesn't directly contradict something else, then they would ignore it.
Would you do credit?
No. Because you didn't label Y1, and it says label Y1. There's no Y1.
You don't have to, but you don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to. Okay, so look at your letter A compared to my letter A. It has to look exactly like mine. It's a recession. It says it right there. Recession. Here's our current equilibrium, PL1. This is Y1. And YF is where long run is. Okay, I can't draw. Okay. So we have Y, the axis, but this is YF. It has to look exactly like that.
What if I put RGDP instead of Y?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that one you get a little bit of wiggle room there. But when it comes to your PL1, Y1, and YF, it has to be exactly where mine is. Okay, and it has to be in a recession. On B, it has math. Have we finished part B yet, or do we need a little bit more time? 10 more seconds. Okay. When it comes to showing your work is part of the answer. So showing your work, because there's like a question page, but then there's the answer sheets that are like a separate sheet of paper. Showing your work cannot happen here on the question page. It has to be part of your answer. And it can't be like off to the side. Like showing your work is part of the answer. So you have to like step by step show it out. So it says the MPC is 0.8. Calculate the minimum amount of government spending. So we're going to be using the spending multiplier. Required to increase aggregate demand by the amount of the recessionary output gap of 500 billion. Show your work. So on B, so there's some sort of change in spending times KS gives us that change in GDP. Well, we plug in what we know, we solve for the rest. So the change in GDP that we want is $500 billion because that is how much our recession is by. The MPC is 0.8. The KS formula is 1 over MPS, or 1 over 0.2, which is 5. So X times 5 gives us $500 billion. The change of spending, which is X, is going to be equal to $100 billion on B. Okay, did you have to write out the formula? No, you did not. But you had to have like KS in there and then kind of like the red part you needed. You did not necessarily need the black part as part of your answer. Okay. Let's do. Yeah, let's do C and D. C and D, and then we'll talk.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's a good way to explain this. I'm smart.
You have any spasms?
What was on the y-axis for the money market?
Okay. If you have no idea what's on the y-axis, oh wait, a y or x?
Y.
Read the graph or read the line again. No. Keep reading. Okay. On C, it says, suppose that the government decides to reduce personal income taxes with no change of government spending. So we just said, hey, they should change spending by $100 billion. And now they're saying, you know what? We're going to do taxes instead. So in order to increase aggregate demand by the amount of the recessionary gap of 500 billion, would the tax cut need to be greater than, less than, or equal to the change in government spending that you identified here? So if we cut taxes to fix the gap, would it be more than 100, equal to 100, or less than 100? Because
Because
KT is less than KS, KS is greater than KT. So it's going to be greater than, because KAS is greater than KT. The spending multiplier has a bigger impact than the tax multiplier does. That is totally fine. If you don't like that explanation and you actually want to do the math, because the tax multiplier, if the spending multiplier was 5, the tax multiplier would be -4. So it'd be X times -4 gives us a change of 500 billion. And that number is going to be, what, 125? And so 125 is greater than 100. See, we did the math. All right. On D, on your graph in part A, show the impact of the tax cut on the short run equilibrium price level, labeling the new price level as PL2. What's going to shift on our aggregate supply demand graph? To the right. Make sure to label PL2 wherever you put PL2. I'm bringing it back to long run equilibrium, so PL2. Make sure that we have all of our arrows where they need to be, between axes, between curves. You okay over there? All right, are we ready to move on to E? Do we know how to draw this graph? Yes and no at the same time. It says correctly draw a correctly labeled money market graph. Show the impact of an increase of nominal GDP. Oh no. Okay, on the equilibrium nominal interest rate. Okay, I'm going to change colors just because I'm just going to change the vibe a little bit. All right. Let's just draw the graph. Andres, do you remember what was on the y-axis?
Nominal.
How'd you figure that out? You forgot. Where'd you find it? It is in the question. Show the impact on the nominal interest rate. So nominal interest rate on the y. Anyone remember what's on the x? Q. Just if you don't remember, Q literally works for everything except for the PPF curve. Yeah. And Phillips curve. Andy, I don't need your sass right now. Hey, what does this graph look like? Just that? Okay, so we got money demand and money supply. Okay. Does anyone know how the change in GDP that we identified right here? It says show the impact of an increase. Oh, it even tells you. My God, it didn't have to get this graph correctly. It's like, hey, I'm just going to assume that you increased GDP in this last question. So let's just go with that. So how was an increase in GDP affect this? Does anyone know what raising GDP will do to the money market graph? Yes. You are demanding more money. When prices go up and everyone's spending more, people need more money so they can continue their spending. And so money demand is going to shift to the right.
Is this the graph where we also shift the supply, the vertical supply?
No. I mean, it does. We do shift that, but only with monetary policy.
Is that in the reserve?
The reserve market graph is for monetary policy, and the supply curve specifically here on money supply is monetary policy. So you would need monetary policy for this to shift. But money demand actually shifts anytime that CIG or XN is shifting. And so anytime that aggregate demand shifts in an alternative universe, money demand is shifting because you can't spend until you have the money. So they go together.
That's limited reserves.
Say it again?
That's limited reserves?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember.
Yes, it is. Monetary policy is on Thursday. Yeah, I know.
For those that this is show the effect on the interest rate.
There it is.
You need the arrow, or if you just
Or
have,
ones and twos.
Okay.
But my God, please do both, because on a time of stress and a time of timed, people, they forget one. And if you do two, 1, 2, and an arrow, you're covering yourself. But if you, I only do arrows, I don't even label equilibriums, and you forget to do that, well, then you just lost college credit, didn't you? You just wasted your time. F, base your answer in part E. Our answer was interest rates went up. What happens to real interest rates, assuming there's no change in inflationary expectations? They go up too. Why?
Because inflation doesn't.
And this is the Fisher equation. So it's real interest rate is equal to nominal interest rate minus inflation. It just said there is no inflation. In the problem, it says assuming there's no change in inflationary expectations. So inflation is 0, and it's nominal interest rates just went up. We just graphed that. So this is going up. So something that's going up minus 0 equals real GDP or real interest rates have got to be going up. If there is no inflation, real and nominal are the same. And you just said had nominal go up, so real must be going up as well. I'm not loving this FRQ. It seems to be really like bouncy all over the place.
No change.
No, it's increasing. It says what happens to real interest rates? They go up because nominal's going up. We just graphed that. There is no inflation. So nominal minus inflation equals real. There is no inflation, so then nominal equals real, and if nominal went up, so is real. You have to, not real interest rates increase. Do you have to explain? No, you were just picking a direction. Increase, they increase. Oh God. Imagine getting something wrong because it's like based off that answer, based off this answer, based off that answer.
So you don't get like your
No.
mark for that?
Nope. Because I know in calculus, stats,
You do.
you do. If you mess up here, but you like do it right based off of the mess up, you get partial credit. What?
Consistency.
Yes. This doesn't work here because everything is just the opposite. So it's like you would get partial credit no matter what you put, because if it's not up, it's down. Like you would, it would be this, yeah. You could just put up arrows for every single answer and get some partial credit there. No. All right, based solely off of the real interest rate change. The real interest rate change just went up. What will happen to each of the following? What will happen to the demand for the dollar, and explain. If our real interest rates are higher, what happens to the demand for the dollar? Because
I want to invest.
people want to save their money in our country because interest rates are higher, they're earning more of a return. So the demand will go up because make more on savings. Make more on savings accounts. Don't say just because higher interest rates. We already said that. You can't use that again. And the stock of physical capital as pizza ovens. What happens to pizza ovens based off our interest rates are higher?
They go down.
Because, let's just explain.
More expensive to loan.
There we go. There it is. Stock of physical capital goes down because loans expensive. Done.
Can you post the progress checks again?
I did not post the progress checks, but I posted an entire AP exam on AP Monster. It doesn't have the FRQs on there, but it does have a full 70 question multiple choice. 60 question multiple choice. 70 minutes, 60 questions. Okay.
What's the format of the test again?
Okay, so 60 multiple choice questions in 70 minutes. Break. 3 FRQs. 1 long FRQ. This is an example of a long FRQ, and then 2 short FRQs. And that's in 50 minutes, where they recommend that you spend 25 of those 50 minutes on the long FRQ, and then the other 25 minutes is split between the 2 short FRQs. So 70 minutes and 50 minutes.
Would you recommend doing the long one first?
Yes, because it's worth more points. You want to get that down to make sure if you run out of time on something that is worthless. Okay, how are we doing? If you have not been here at the first tutorings, Raul looking at you, and Tiago looking at you, there are packets up here. Help yourself. Do not take the keys, but you can take pictures of the keys, and maybe if you want to bring some for your friends and pass them out in government tomorrow. Since I have not seen a single person from 6th period, okay. Did I win second? Second? Oh, that's right, you're in 6th. 5th. 4th. 5th. 2nd. 4th?
6th period.
You were in 6th?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
2nd. 4th. Man. It was mainly a mental challenge for myself. See if I can remember that. Sorry, Raul. Y'all are free to leave. Yeah. Please go away.